Good evening, friends. I'm Dr. Harmeet Singh, organizing chairman of this Trauma Series 2021 and 22. Today with us we have Dr. Sohail, who is attending consultant in the Department of Emergency Medicine at Max Vishali.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Sohail. I'm an attending consultant in Max Hospital, Vaishali. As we all know, that trauma is a leading cause of death. So today my focus will be on pelvic trauma. Introduction, like as I said, traumatic injuries can range from minor wounds to major complex injuries, causing shock and multi-system organ dysfunction. Trauma is the leading cause of death of patients between the age group of 15 to 24. It accounts for approximately 30% of all ICU admissions annually. Pelvic trauma raises concern due to the high energy that is generally required to cause the injury. It is frequently associated with additional injuries, transfusion requirements, and prolonged rehabilitation. The pelvis is a ring-like structure composed of various bones. It consists of sacrum, coccyx, innominate bones like pubis, ischium, and ilium. The innominate bones join to form a acetabulum. The innominate bones join anteriorly at the pubic symphysis. So it mainly contains blood vessels, nerves, and urogenital and rectum in it. So the most common injured vessel in pelvic injuries is superior gluteal artery. Veins accompany the arteries and are also prone to injury. The proximity of the veins and arteries account for the high incidence of combined injuries. The seriousness of pelvic fracture comes from the association of other injuries, as well as the potential for hematoma and hemorrhagic shock. Hemorrhage from pelvic structure is a major cause of morbidity and mortality. Nerve injuries are less common than vascular injuries with pelvic trauma. A lumbosacral plexus injury account for the majority of nerve injuries after pelvic trauma. The plexus is in close proximity to the sacroiliac joint and the acetabulum, two of the more common pelvic injury locations. Root avulsion is possible and is typically seen in more severe pelvic trauma. The lumbar plexus can be injured, this is less common. Usually, injury occurs from traction or compression from a retroperitoneal bleed. So I have posted a picture. In this, we can see ilium, ischium, and pubis, and you can see they all join at pubic symphysis. Etiology. The pelvic ring is a very solid structure requiring a great force to disrupt the complex. The majority of pelvic fractures result from motor vehicle collision, fall from height, pedestrian or cyclist struck by a vehicle. There is, however, a high rate of associated injuries occurring in 12 to 62% of patients with pelvic fractures. Epidemiology. Pelvic fractures make up about 10% of fractures in blunt trauma patients. The most commonly injured structure are intra-abdominal, with the liver, spleen, and kidney occurring most often. Urogenital lesions account for over 40% of associated injuries. It is estimated that up to 24% of pelvic trauma patients have a urethral injury, and 20% have an associated blood laceration. Most urethral injuries in males are located at the bulbomembranous junction. 1 to 2% of traumatic rectal injuries are due to pelvic fractures. Vaginal lacerations are reported in 2 to 4% of pelvic fractures. The American Association for Surgery of Trauma divides vaginal injuries into 3 degrees. First degree includes contusion, hematoma, and superficial laceration. Second degree, it involves a deep fat or muscle laceration. And the third degree involves laceration of cervix or peritoneum or injury to the adjacent organs. The most commonly injured artery are anterior branches of internal iliac artery, as I have said, superior gluteal artery, lateral sacral artery, and the obturator arteries. The most common vein injured are the presacral plexus and the perivesical veins. So classification, mainly two broad classification. First is tile, and the second one is Young-Burgess classification system. The tile classification describe the 3 types of underlying mechanisms for pelvic fractures. Type A is a rotationally and vertically stable fracture. Type B, in this we have a rotationally unstable but vertically stable fracture. And finally, type C is both rotationally and vertically unstable fracture. The second one is Young-Burgess classification, which consists of anterior posterior compression, lateral compression, vertical shear, or a combined mechanism. Anterior posterior compression fractures are often unstable. They are the open book pelvic fractures. They are associated with pelvic and retroperitoneal hemorrhage. Lateral compression is the most common. These fractures are often stable but can be associated with bladder rupture. A vertical shear injury is usually unstable. They require a substantial force on one or both hemipelvises, such as jump from a tall height or being hit by a falling tree. They cause complete ligamentous injury. The Young-Burgess and Tile classification both classify pelvic fractures on the anatomic classification of injuries, but fail to consider hemodynamic stability. The World Society of Emergency Surgery created classification that is based on anatomical classification as well as on the hemodynamic stability of the patient. This helps with consideration of our treatment algorithm. The World Society Emergency Surgery classification divides pelvic injury into three categories, that is mild, moderate, and severe. Mild, in this the fracture is stable and the patient is hemodynamically also stable. Moderate, the fracture is unstable but the patient is hemodynamically stable. And last one, the severe, the fracture is either stable or unstable but the patient is hemodynamically unstable. Minor injuries are typically treated with non-operative management. Moderate injuries are given a pelvic binder and then they should be considered for angioembolization. Severe injuries require more intensive intervention. A pelvic binder should be placed. Upon arrival to the ED, the patient should be treated with preperitoneal packing or REBAU, resuscitative endovascular balloon occlusion of the aorta, or angioembolization. So I have posted the pic for tile classification, and in this type A is stable, type B is rotationally unstable but vertically stable, and type C is rotationally and vertically unstable. The second one is the Young-Burgess classification. Also we can see anterior posterior compression, lateral compression, and vertical shear. Evaluation. The initial evaluation of the trauma patient is the primary survey. Firstly, we have to check airway and the C-spine. An easy way to assess the airway is to have the patient to speak. Second one is the breathing. Listen for bilateral breath sounds and look at the chest wall motion during the respiratory cycle. C is circulation. This helps determine whether the patient is in shock. And disability, in which we have to see GCS and sugars. Exposure and environmental control. Here the examiner addresses the patient and he assesses head-to-toe evaluation for injury. The secondary survey follows the primary survey. This is also a head-to-toe examination, and DRE, digital rectal examination, should also be performed during the secondary survey. Perineal hematoma and edema should also raise suspicious for pelvic content injuries. And instability indicates a pelvic fracture. Laboratory markers are often useful in traumatic settings. Sensitive markers like serum lactate levels and a base deficit, which can both be obtained from an ABG. Other useful markers are coagulation profile like PTINR, APTT, and fibrinogen levels. We can do a multiple imaging modalities like FAST, and also pelvic X-ray is in a hemodynamically unstable patient may help in identify potentially life-threatening cause of injury. X-ray, while useful for quick evaluation in an unstable patient, is still inferior to CT for evaluation of fractures. CT scan remains the gold standard for pelvic fractures. A CT scan not only identifies fracture but has the ability for three-dimensional bone structures. And 3D reconstruction allows better operative planning for patients. A urethrogram can help diagnose the urethral injury. As urethral injuries alone are not life-threatening, any vascular or visceral injury should be managed prior to undergo urethrogram. So, treatment or management. Pelvic fractures, no matter the grade, have the potential to become life-threatening. Treatment for pelvic fracture starts from ABC and then secondary survey. Adequate resuscitation is crucial in any trauma patients. Two large bore IV cannula should be placed initially. Then hypotension should be addressed with fluid resuscitation followed by blood products. Pelvic binder should be placed when there are signs of pelvic ring disruption in either stable or unstable patients. Pelvic binders are a temporary measure until a more definitive repair can occur. Hemodynamic stable pelvic fractures. Evidence of arterial bleed on CT should go directly for angioembolization. Pelvic angiography is usually performed by intervention radiologist. Angioembolization is successful in 85 to 100% of cases. Angioembolization is usually performed via a femoral artery approach, or if femoral is unavailable, we can take left brachial or axillary artery. Left brachial or axillary artery. It can also be used for angioembolization. The most common vessel for embolization are the internal iliac arteries and its branches, like the superior gluteal nerve, the obturator, and the internal pudendal artery. Absorbable gelatin, compressed sponge, and coils are typically used for embolization. Absorbable gelatin compressed sponge is a temporary agent that is inexpensive and readily available. Coils are permanent. Coils only work if the coagulation pathway is intact, and they include a thrombotic effect leading to clot formation and occlusion. After embolization, a complete angiogram is used to confirm the bleeding has stopped. Studies have shown angioembolization with 90 minutes of arrival to the hospital has improved survival rates. Angioembolization can be repeated in patients with continued hemorrhage and hemodynamic instability after first embolization. Patients with hemodynamic unstable fractures should be admitted to the hospital for observation. So second one is hemodynamically unstable pelvic fractures. Generally, these patients will go from immediate laparotomy if they remain unstable with concern for injury. Many authors argue angioembolization should be done prior to going to OT. The basis of the argument is there is a high likelihood of finding an arterial blood source, and because there is a strong correlation between time to embolize and survival. PPP, preperitoneal packing, involves putting package up against the peritoneum to cause a tamponade effect. It is less time consuming than angioembolization. PPP is usually for hemodynamically unstable patients at centers. It can also be used as a bridge to more time consuming procedure such as angioembolization. Resuscitative endovascular balloon occlusion of aorta is an alternate to cross clamping the aorta. Rebow has emerged in recent years at the trauma centers around the world. It uses a balloon catheter to occlude the artery, to occlude the aorta in an attempt to minimize life-threatening hemorrhage. Unstable pelvic fractures require surgical fixation. Early fixation has been shown to improve pain, improved fracture reduction, early immobilization, and control of bleeding from fractured bones. External fixation allows initial stabilization in hemodynamically unstable patients and those with pelvic contamination. It is generally placed within the operating room. The common pain location are the iliac wings and the anterior inferior iliac spine. A definitive repair is undertaken once the patient has been adequately resuscitated and stabilized. Patients that are hemodynamically stable or borderline can be safely taken for a definitive repair within 24 hours of injury. Associated bladder injuries may require repair. The location of the injury dictates the management. Generally, extraperitoneal bladder injuries are treated non-operatively. Intraperitoneal bladder injuries require surgical repair. Sigmoid and intraperitoneal rectal injuries should be debrided and primarily repaired. Vaginal laceration treatments dependent on the degree. First degree generally requires gauze packing. Second degree and third degree requires surgical repair. Complication. The associated injuries with pelvic fractures make prognostic measurement difficult. One study showed that over 60% of patients with traumatic pelvic fractures experience chronic pain. Chronic pain is associated with depression and anxiety. External fixation is associated with pain site infection that can be treated with perioral or IV antibiotics, plus minus debridement of the site. A lateral femoral cutaneous nerve injury can also occur due to external fixator. Urinary and fecal incontinence are also possible. Urethral structures have been reported in 31 to 69% of complete urethral transactions. urinary incontinence is initially treated conservatively. Pelvic floor stenting are used initially. Duloxetine, a selective serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, is used in combination with physiotherapy successfully in many patients. Complications from angioembolization occur up to 5% of cases. Complications can occur at the access site and include hematoma, pseudoaneurysm, dissection, or thrombus. Pearls. Pelvic injuries are associated with high mortality, associated with internal injuries and significant bleeding. A plain pelvic X-ray is quick, however, a CT scan is a gold standard for fractures. A scan ideally should be performed with IV contrast with an arterial phase, a portal phase, and a delayed phase. We should obtain consent from orthopedic, urologist, and a radiologist. If needed, we should provide optimal care and timely management of the patient. Early involvement of physical and occupational therapy are crucial for recovery. It is essential to counsel patients on potential complications and to set recovery expectations. And these are my references. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sohail, for such an excellent presentation. With this, I announce the end of this Trauma Series 2021, which we started 2 months back. And I am very grateful to all my faculty members and chairpersons, Dr. Dheeraj, who were a big support throughout this series. Without my faculties, we could not have completed this trauma series. At the end, I would like to thank all the participants who were throughout these 2 months with us, and I hope that you had a great time with us.